Joe MacKenzie here, your watercolor coach. Today we're going to talk about the color Aureolin. And if you're wondering what the color Aureolin is, I am currently wearing it. So let's get started. Aureolin is a very bright color. First I'm going to put it on the paper right out of the tube, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to it, a little bit more water, and a little bit more. I'll carry it out about 4 steps. So you can see on the very, very far left, it will read as a light color, but it will still register on the value scale. Whereas once it gets thinned out, you can hardly even see it. It's also a very bright color. It's not a yellow and it's not a green. It's sort of a neutral, but I use it as a yellow. Now the other, so the 3 colors that I would have to have if I could have no other colors are Aureolin as my yellow, alizarin crimson as my red, and ultramarine blue as my blue. These 3 would be the primary colors, and from all of these I can mix other things. So the Aureolin would be the value of 1, alizarin crimson would be a value of around a 5, and the ultramarine blue would be a value of, say, a 7 or an 8. So I start to look at them and I start to mix them up on my palette. And as long as you have a limited palette, you know that you're mixing paint with itself, in other words, within these 3, you're going to have colors that really go. So from Aureolin, I can make a light green, I can make a dark green. I can go even darker if I want to. This is just a small sampling of the colors that you can make from these 3 colors. But just imagine if these were tubes in the art store and you had to go and buy them. You don't need to invest in lots of tubes of paint, but you do need to invest time in mixing color. And as I said, these 3 colors in particular do come together and make some absolutely beautiful colors that represent all the colors around the color wheel. All the way from your primaries, your yellow, red, and blue, and then your secondaries, as well as the complements, and even neutrals. Here comes, for example, there's a gray, and I'm going to mix a brown as well. So no need to buy tubes that have neutrals in them. I'm not saying not to, I'm just saying look at the possibilities that just these 3 colors give you. It's just extraordinary, and that they all go together so nicely. So now let's pretend that we were out in the field and we only had these 3 colors. You know, how would these colors then get represented in a real scene? Now the other thing is, I live in Vermont, and these are the colors that you see here in my environment. Let's say you live in Bermuda, or maybe you live in the southwest of the United States. These might not be the colors that fit or your environment. you know. I only know what I know, which is living here, and these are colors that you see all the time, and so they read correctly to me. But you do have to adjust your palette for local color and what's in your environment. But I live in the northeast of the United States, and these are the colors in our world here. So now the other thing that I wanted to demonstrate is in the front of this painting, I'm doing what I call mix for color, mass for value. So that front value is going to be 1 value, but I'm using all these different colors in order to mask them in there, and you get an idea of all the different colors that grass could be. But again, they're all mixed from just Aureolin and a little bit of ultramarine blue. And as I've said in other videos, I use very little water and much more paint than water, because I don't do a lot of layering. I like to hit things on the first pass if I can. Oftentimes with reds, you need to go back and make another pass, or, you know, it all depends. But now let's look at the sky for a minute. You'll see there's still, this is a watered down ultramarine blue, but I'm also putting some alizarin crimson in the sky, and even some of that Aureolin as well. Everything needs to be integrated. Everything needs to sort of coexist and be near each other, because the sky reflects the land reflects the sky. You know, it all becomes an amazing process, so similar to cooking. You know, it all comes together if you use the right ingredients and your knowledge of the world and your experience too. Now I'm going to quickly demonstrate a triad using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and Aureolin, and then I'm going to talk about that square in just a minute or 2. So when you're putting together, well, I'll talk about that in a second. So let's take a look at that and then pull back, and then we'll talk about this square. This square represents what happens when you put three colors together and let them meet and mingle on the paper. But what I wanted you to see here is that if you look closely, you'll see all the colors represented in the spectrum of the color wheel. You'll see yellow, which would be the Aureolin all by itself. You'll see a red, which is the alizarin crimson. You'll see a green where things intersect. You'll see an orange. You'll see violet. You'll see blue. You get the whole spectrum of the color wheel in one color patch. It's just another way to demonstrate how versatile these three colors are when they're together. And this could, if you wanted it to be, for example, if you wanted to use this triad as a shadow shape within your painting, you could do that. And these three colors, I think it's because they're transparent, because they're bright, they have a similar consistency. They almost want to come together and puddle and make these sort of magical moments. When you're doing a triad like this, it's really important to try as much as you can to get the consistency of the paint to be almost the same. If one color is too thick and the other color is too thin, then they'll want to resist each other a little bit. So it does take some practicing to get those triads to want to go together. But that simply has to do with paint consistency, and that's not really what we're talking about here as much as we're talking about the choice of colors of paint. So now let's pull back and look at the whole sheet. And so these are why I suggest those three colors as the best colors. So remember to keep the whites your paper white, your paints wet, mask for color, mix for value, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.